Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to the Diverse Thinking, Different Learning podcast. We are going to have another conversation today about a mode of therapy that helps neurodiverse kids. And you may not have heard about this therapeutic tool, but it's a very interesting one that has so many benefits. It is surf therapy. And it is a therapeutic tool that uses the elements of the ocean, surfboard and sand, to meet the individual needs of a child or an adolescent and even adults. It can target areas such as sensory integration, physical and emotional regulation, motor planning, coordination, as well as higher level cognitive development and even mental health. My guest today is Naomi Matanick. She's a pediatric occupational therapist who specializes in sensory integration therapy, surf therapy, and child and infant development. She has served infants through to adolescents in a variety of areas, and I am thrilled that she is here with us today.
Millions of kids struggle with learning, processing, and social emotional difficulties. These challenges interfere with their ability to reach their full potential. Dr. Karen Wilson is here to help. Her extensive background in pediatric neuropsychology and higher education have prepared her for this unique mission. Listen as she delivers content to inform, educate, and empower parents and educators. This will enable you to identify challenges that kids face and get them on the road to achieving their full potential. This is Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus.
Hi, Naomi. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here.
I'm so glad that you are here. Every time I think about the work that you do as an occupational therapist and in this space, I said, I have to have a conversation with you about the work that you do. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
And so, I read your bio before you came on, and I'm really intrigued by this whole idea of surf therapy. And you are an occupational therapist, and surf therapy is one therapeutic tool that uses water, surfboard, and sand. I am not a surfer or an occupational therapist. So can you tell us, for those who may not be familiar, how do those things connect? The water, the surfboard, and the sand connect. Tell me a little bit about that, and then we'll jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're saying it is one therapeutic tool, because
Yes,
that's exactly what it is. It's a therapeutic tool. And as we know, there are so many tools. And what I found of how it all connects is there are actually so many properties within the ocean, within the sand, that impact our bodies. So it doesn't matter who you are. There's these properties in the ocean that actually activate our nervous system and activate even our parasympathetic system in being able to regulate heart rate and being able to regulate the digestive system and get us into rest and digest. The sound waves of the ocean can activate the parasympathetic system. But there's ways that not even doing anything at all, naturally, the ocean in that environment will start to regulate us.
right. And that is really intriguing, because you and I both see kids with sensory processing difficulties, with motor delays, even kiddos who need extra social emotional support. And it seems that surf therapy is particularly helpful, particularly with the sensory kiddos who really have those sensory challenges.
Right, exactly. And during this podcast, you'll hear me talk about surf therapy a lot through the lens of sensory processing, because that is my area of expertise. And for those kiddos in particular, we can treat them in a natural environment or in a clinic environment, but as they encounter the ocean, and particularly as they get on a surfboard, even laying on a surfboard, not even expecting them to stand on a surfboard, the movement of the ocean is going to activate the vestibular system. It'll activate the auditory canals and the fluid in the inner ear, and it'll bring about a huge sense of body awareness and a sense of being alert. And then And then from there, you can start to target higher level skills.
Yeah. And it seems like you've got this interactive nature of the relationship between the task, which is surfing, the individual in the water, and then this ocean, which in and of itself has this therapeutic feel to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So being in the water, even if a child were to walk into the water and not get on a surfboard, um, the pressure of the water activates our muscles and brings about, again, activating that sense of body awareness, regulating the nervous system. There is even a visual component to all of this. Just there's a decreased visual stimuli in the environment around the beach and the water that can be calming and regulating. So there are ways that it activates each individual sensory system. I mean, even down to the interoceptive system, of targeting and regulating our internal body systems, like I said, heart rate. I mean, I think one thing I do want to make note of is just because it's regulating our nervous system and even integrating some of the sensory systems, it doesn't mean that a child won't get nervous when they get to the beach and I'm telling them, hey, you're going to go in the ocean and get on the surfboard. So it's not this magic wand that automatically makes those real feelings go away. But what I've learned in my experience working with neurodiverse kids is sometimes even something as small as learning to tie your shoes can feel like a huge mountain for them. And so they're impacting that, they're encountering that feeling, whether they're on the beach thinking about getting on a surfboard or whether they're in my clinic and I'm presenting them with something that's really a real challenge for them. And so instead, I'm wanting to take those fears that they're likely having no matter where they go through their lived experience and help them tackle it, through the lens of surfing.
Right. And, like I said before, I have never surfed. I've watched surfing.
Yeah.
And it seems that it involves, like what you're saying, multiple senses, muscles, and skills are being utilized simultaneously in the act of surfing. Can you talk about the skills that you are working on with surf therapy? Because it seems like there's so much going on. There's balance, and you could probably speak to this better than I can. Talk about those skills that you are working on during surf therapy and how that helps.
Yeah, definitely. So I always want to have the foundation of the sensory systems, so that the child can activate that sense of body awareness. But then once we've got that, we're working on balance. So the cool thing about the ocean and the way the water moves under a surfboard is it's going to be different every single time. Sometimes you might get out there one day and the waves are moving really fast, or they're maybe another day they're going really slow. So the child is constantly having to account for that shift in the water, which is so cool because I can't create that on my own. And then, we're looking at bilateral integration. So as you're paddling with your left side and your right side, you're having to cross midline not only with your, body, but with your visual system. Another really cool skill that it integrates is our reflexes. A big one is our ATNR, asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, which actually impacts visual development, midline development, impacts our ability to activate the core. Of course, we're working on core strength because you're having to stabilize your tummy on the board. And that's all of the things I just mentioned are being targeted before a child would even stand up on a board. That's just laying on a surfboard. Then, of course, once you're standing on a surfboard, you're having to integrate that visual motor system. Okay, I look down, I look up, I have to look out at the water instead of looking down at my feet and still account for those shifts and that coordination of where my body is on the board.
Right. So you've got this postural control that you're working on, and there's a certain amount of motor planning. My brain is going to executive functioning as you're talking, and also dealing with the unexpected. You have to be flexible because, like you said, you don't know what you're going to get once you get out there.
Right, exactly. Yes, if you're thinking of those higher cognitive functions, exactly. I mean, even in terms of executive function, it's like, we have to think about like right and left side of the body. Okay, what foot comes forward first? How do I stand? That sequencing and timing that we have to develop. When do I stand? Um, so definitely higher level cognitive functions are going into that as well. If we're thinking about safety and planning, okay, the wave is coming. Is it going to crash on me, or am I in a safe position in the ocean that it won't crash on me? So there's so many brain functions.
Absolutely. I mean, you're building all of these skills and developing all of these skills, and you've got this multi-sensory immersion through being in the water. And it allows you to, it sounds like it allows you to develop so many different skills and build on those. So who is surf therapy good for? If you have a parent who is of a child who's neurodiverse, what kinds of kids do you see coming in and who are benefiting from surf therapy? What are they struggling with? Because I think that's something the parents might have in mind. They might say, my child has a lot of struggles with self-regulation or a lot of motor difficulties. Who does surf therapy help?
Yeah, surf therapy. I mean, it can help. It can help so many kids. Um, but definitely, what you're noting, self-regulation, but also sensory integration. So if there's any sensory system, and it doesn't even have to be all of them, but if it's any single sensory system that needs integrating, it can help the integration of our sensory systems. Children with ADHD, as we've talked about, um, how surfing can work on attention, executive function. Uh, there's been a lot of research in particular, and with kids on the autism spectrum, and how the properties of the water and the skills that go into surfing can help facilitate whatever specific needs they have. And then, of course, just your general kiddos who are working on motor coordination, motor development, postural development. Early elementary is actually a really great time because there's so many skills that these kids are having to learn and integrate all at once that it's a great time to use this as an intervention.
Yes. And it seems that you are also, for a child who's maybe being exposed to surfing for the first time, they have an opportunity to develop a new skill. And that alone has its own benefits. You're increasing independence and they're participating in something that is fun and maybe meaningful to them in a way that, academics is not.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that because that's one of my biggest passions behind this is recognizing that they can learn a new skill that's fun. So something that was brought to my attention is that there's so many external expectations put on them through academics or through even team sports and then showing up and maybe possibly feeling defeated. But the idea behind surf therapy isn't that isn't the end goal is not to have a child become a pro surfer. The end goal is to have this child engage in something that is fun for them and playful. And a big part of it when I'm working with my kids on the beach is letting them tell me how comfortable they are with the next step. So I want them to get that sense of accomplishment at the end of each session, and feel empowered, and that teaching them that they can recognize that there's really not an expectation. The expectation is up to them and their comfort level that day in the water.
Right. And what ages do you see in for surf therapy? Because I know this has actually been used for adults
Yes.
in a number of different areas. So I'd love to hear, what age do you start?
Yeah, it's definitely used across the lifespan. I mean, for myself, I've noticed that really usually about age 6 to 7 and up through early adolescence, is a perfect time to start this. And it's all based on the individual child and their skill level. So as long as they're of an age where there is that cognitive awareness, and being able to that safety awareness, but even the younger ones, we're able to stay in the whitewash really close to the shore. I have specific surfboards that are wider where I'm able to ride tandem with a smaller child. So there's ways to adapt it for the age group. And I've even been kind of brainstorming about how I can safely get even younger than 6,
Right, right.
to use this as an intervention.
Well, like we said at the beginning, this is one therapeutic tool, and it's one that addresses so many different aspects of a child's functioning from, you talked about sensory processing, motor planning, that whole body strength, that core strength that you mentioned, and self-regulation skills. I'm just thinking of someone in the water, just waiting, waiting. And like you said, being flexible, and what happens when, you fall, things don't go as planned. How do you, recoup and readjust?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so much to that. And being a surfer myself, I can tell you I have to do all of those things all of the time when I'm in the water.
Right. And, when I think about surf therapy and the reading that I've done about it, I'm thinking about mental health. You are an occupational therapist, and you are, using surf therapy as a tool to help kids in the occupational therapy realm. But there are increasing rates of mental health problems among adolescents. And we know from the literature that physical activity can enhance mood and alleviate mental health issues. And it seems that surf therapy would be a great adjunct to traditional psychotherapy for children and teens because of all the things that you've described.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you're bringing that up because, funny enough, there is a big presence of surf therapy for adults in mental health, but it so far, I think, considering that for kids is still on the rise in research and awareness. Um, and so, as an occupational therapist, we know that there's that huge connection between our physical body and then our emotional being, and how those two can play in together. I mean, going back to what I talked about earlier, even the properties of the ocean, if we're getting real sciencey, they say that there's negative ions that are produced from the ocean that actually can boost serotonin, which is wild to me. And that's just an amazing property that's already existing. But then again, yes, once we are tapped into our physical body, and not only that, once we're building confidence and feeling empowered, um, we're able to boost that serotonin and able to boost that emotional system, and that those feel good feelings, and hopefully decrease anxiety, and decrease what other mental challenges kids are encountering.
Right. Because, and again, we see kiddos who are struggling on sometimes multiple fronts. They've got
Mm-hmm.
maybe sensory motor integration issues, ADHD, but they also have anxiety, or they're also
Right.
struggling with depression.
Mm-hmm.
And as you talk about, increasing serotonin levels, we know that's associated with decreased symptoms of depression and stress and anxiety. And it's not even just about lowering levels of mental health symptoms. It's also about just having better emotional well-being for youth. And there's something about that connection to nature. When I'm thinking about surfing, you're facilitating trust and safety. They absolutely have to trust you and to feel safe in that environment. And when we go back to the self-regulation, you're teaching them to manage and accept difficult emotions. Because I imagine someone who's trying something new for the first time, it can be extremely frustrating because you're not going to go out there and be this pro surfer immediately, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, I can tell you, I almost gave up on surfing when I started learning because I thought, yeah, I'm done. Like, I'm done trying to figure this out. Like I said, I feel like just in my time working with kids who are neurodiverse, I think their threshold of that feeling is really a lot smaller. than neurotypical kids, just because of the multiple experiences they've had to go through where they feel like challenged and then defeated. And so, yeah, I do feel like, yeah, getting to have that experience where they're learning successively how to overcome those challenges.
Right. Because you're facilitating, again, the skill building, but also all the positive emotions when you do get on that board and you do feel that water and it feels good. And, you see that positive change, you see improvement because you're building on those skills. And, research shows that improvements in mental health occur because of a sense of mastery and achievement. And by working with you in doing something new and getting better at it, that is also giving them that sense of mastery and just learning a new skill. You don't even have to be a master at it, but I'm able to do something today that I wasn't able to do 2 months ago.
Absolutely. And you saying that mastery, and I love that. That's so cool about, the research, that you don't have to be, you don't have to be a pro, but just even mastering something small. And that's been something cool I've been able to play around with is, you know, if a child doesn't even want to get on a surfboard, but maybe they're going to get in the ocean, and then watching them master and overcome that fear that day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's incredible just to see them be able to walk away and know that they achieved something even little.
Absolutely. And you work with not only kids one-on-one. Do you do group, like a surf camp, where you work with a number of different kids at the same time?
Right now, I'm doing one-on-one, but in the future, I would love to progress it to surf camps.
Yeah, because it seems that that social connection with peers who are working toward the same goal would also have its own benefit.
Definitely. And in the terms of surf therapy, the research that's being done in surf therapy, that is one aspect that they have found is so great, is everybody having that sense of camaraderie. Um, and yeah, and having your peers to encourage. I mean, that is a huge piece of it.
Right. And, you mentioned, a lot of neurodiverse kids who've experienced struggles in school have that feeling of being defeated. And it seems that surf therapy also provides an opportunity to escape from all of that, to get out of the classroom, out of, even an office, and to the beach.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my hope is that, you know, we've kind of touched on this, that when they get to the beach, that it feels like something fun and feels like something playful for them. Like you're saying, they're learning another skill that isn't related to academics. Um, and and surfing, as much as it's great to be in those groups, like at a surf camp, surfing is a very individualized sport. So you're not really competing against anybody else. You're just seeing what you can do, and hopefully having fun with that in the process, rather than, like I said, rather than feeling like there has to be um, an outcome at the end.
Right. It seems that you're modeling handling challenges, daily challenges, because they're going to face those challenges in the water and have to figure out a way to overcome them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's whatever feelings come up in the ocean and the water, like we've talked about, are feelings and challenges that are going to come up in daily life. So you get to practice.
Absolutely. And so, in the work that you do, what is your hope for kids for kids who go through surf therapy? What do you want them to experience through surfing?
Sure. Yeah. I think my biggest hope is that they find something that gives them an increased sense of confidence, and also an increased sense of self-trust, trusting that um, they are the expert on what they're able to tolerate and what they're able to handle in their body. Um, through that sense of confidence, feeling empowered in learning something challenging and overcoming it little by little, So even though I want to target those motor skills and, those cognitive skills and the sensory integration, that is absolutely an end goal. But I really want from serving specifically, I really want these kids to gain that sense of self and identity through this.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. And I love the work that you're doing because it targets so many different things for so many kiddos who are struggling on a number of fronts. And I can't thank you enough for spending time with me this afternoon to provide this information to families who may not even have heard of surf therapy or thought about it, and maybe even therapists who are working with a child in traditional psychotherapy and see that surf therapy would be a nice adjunct to the therapy and the work that they're doing. And of course, those kiddos who need that motor support and sensory motor integration support, seeing surf therapy as an option. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me and giving me the time to talk about this, because I think it's something that it is on the rise, and I want people to know that it exists and that, it benefits so many people and so many, a variety of needs in children as well.
Yes. So if listeners want to get in touch with you to learn more about surf therapy, occupational therapy, learn more about your services, what is the best way for them to reach you?
So I have a website that has all of my contact information. And so that is www.hang-10therapeutics.com. So the 10 is actually spelled out. People are always not sure about that one. And then on that page, that shares about my background and my experiences, as well as it'll have my contact information. So my phone number and my email. And I'm happy to set up a consultation call to hear about each child's needs and whether or not surf therapy would be a good fit for them, or traditional therapy as well.
Wonderful. And I will be sure to put a link to your website in the show notes. So people can if someone is listening right now, they can just go onto the show notes, scroll down and click on the link and get on Naomi's website. So thank you again for being here. I appreciate all the work that you do.
Yes, thank you so much.
I am so glad that Naomi could be with us today. And if you have questions for her, make sure you check out the show notes because her contact information is right there. Thanks again for listening. I would love to stay in touch with you. The best way to do that is to get on our email list. You will be the first to know when we are hosting events, when we are launching new webinars, town halls. And if you want to know how to connect with some of these amazing professionals who work with kids, adolescents, and young adults, reach out to me at drkiwilson@childnexus.com. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Diverse Thinking, Different Learning by Child Nexus. For more resources, visit us online at childnexus.com.